This series of videos will focus on paper 2 question 5. So you have spent a long time now studying the reading section, questions 1 to 4, which altogether add up to 40 marks, and now we're going to look at the writing section, which also counts for 40 marks. This is 50% of the paper. There are 2 writing sections across both papers, that's 50% of each, therefore writing is worth 50% of the entire GCSE. Therefore, it is a very, very, very important question. In English, to have one question worth 40 marks sometimes can seem cruel, which is why it's very important that we have an approach and we have a structure that means no matter what information you are given to talk about, to write about, you will feel confident because you know how to approach it. I'm going to split the videos into sections so we can look at how we open, what questions to think about, and how we develop our speech, our article, our piece of non-fiction writing. Okay, so a bit of context. You will be asked to write one of the following text choices: a letter, a speech, an article, a text for a leaflet, or an essay. I've put speech twice, so one of the 5. What I will say is the actual framing of the text isn't as important. So like the difference between it being a letter and an article, the differences are quite small in terms of how we present that. So we're not going to worry too much about that now. That's something we can worry more about towards the end of the process. Once you start writing quite well, then you can start adapting for the form. But until you start getting somewhere where you can write a whole piece, we're not going to worry too much about form just yet. But that is something for the future. So over the time, once you've got to a whole place with this, where you can write a whole piece, we will look at how we edit our answers for these text types, but we're not going to worry about that just now. In your exam, question 5, which you will probably do first, you will be given a statement of opinion, which will say something like this. This one's about social media. Social media should be banned for those under 18. And you'll be asked to write a text type. This one says article for a newspaper, in which you argue your point of view on this topic. Now, it may as well say our point of view on this topic, because you don't necessarily have to argue your legitimate opinion. You can argue whatever you think is the easiest to explain or the most obvious opinion that will have the most to say about. Sometimes you might have quite a controversial opinion, but it might be hard to articulate, so you'll talk about the other opinion anyway. Really, the opinion is there just to kind of get the ideas flowing. You're going to have to be able to say, I think social media should be banned, or social media shouldn't be banned for those under 18, because, and it's really just to start thinking of that idea through your head. We want you to have reasons. So, this is how I'm going to explain it to you. I want you to think, when you get introduced to your question, of these 2 things: your subject of sympathy and your reader, or I suppose your audience. If it was a speech, we'd be speaking to an audience, wouldn't we? So our subject of sympathy, or our reader, our audience. Our subject of sympathy is what or who we are writing about. So whenever I think about my subject of sympathy, I think of the phrase affected by whatever's in the question. Yeah? If my question was about homelessness, then my subject of sympathy would be people that are affected by homelessness. If it was the housing crisis, it'd be people affected by the housing crisis. If it was poverty, people affected by poverty. If it was nurses and the kind of overworking of the NHS, I would do people affected by the overworking of the NHS, maybe nurses, doctors, medical professionals, cleaning staff in hospitals and their families. If it was whether PE should still be a subject at school, I would talk about people that are negatively affected by a lack of PE. Yeah? So my subject of sympathy is the people that are affected by, or it can be an easy way to do it, is people who are affected by the subject. Now, our subject is that social media should be banned for those under 18, which means children. Social media should be banned for children suggests that social media is damaging for children. It suggests that children are affected by social media. So if that's what my subject of sympathy is, I think then, imagine a little luggage bag, like a suitcase. What do these people, our subject of sympathy, what do they carry? What is their burden? What makes their lives difficult and heavy? Yeah? So I think, well, what are the effects of social media? Well, we know that a huge effect of social media is time. Yeah? Social media can be addictive. If you want to pause this and write your own and then look at my answers, you can do. We know that social media, spending too long looking at a screen, can have quite physical effects of headaches. So I've thought about the physical here. We spend a lot of time on it. It can be addictive. It can create headaches. The idea of like looking down, it can have health problems in general. So people can get neck ache as well as headaches or dry eyes. But also there's the emotional issues of social media. Have a think about what emotional issues we have. We've got bullying, mental health problems and well-being. Does it affect how well we feel? Yeah. Dangerous opinions, especially on sites that are unmonitored, that do not have moderators, for example. And I suppose dangerous opinions or dangerous people. Yeah, it's the anonymity of online. People are anonymous online and therefore much more dangerous than in real life. Okay, so we know that the effect of social media, we know how it can be quite damaging. Our reader, I want you to always think about this, our reader is not going to be the worst person in the world. The worst person in the world will look at your article and go, don't care, not my problem. We don't want that person because we can't change that person. We are writing to someone who will read it and probably go, yeah, you've got a point. So our reader is someone who is probably ignorant but compassionate. That's what we assume. And to get good marks in this exam, really you want to think that. They're ignorant, but they do care, they are compassionate. And your job is to make the reader care, however you can. So what might our reader, our ignorant reader, think about this topic? What might they naively believe about social media? Pause it if you want to write your own answers and then come back to me. Well, they might think it's just for fun. They might think it's about my follower count. I only care about my follower count. There's nothing wrong with caring about followers. There's nothing wrong with caring about likes. It's just a hobby. It's just for fun. They might naively believe it's entirely harmless because it's not real. It's online. It's a fictional world. They might themselves be attached to this non-real world. They might think it is silly. They might think it is, let me think of a better word than silly. I don't want to say the word ridiculous. They might think that only affects desperate people or friendless people or people that are alone. It only affects some people, it won't affect me because I'm not one of those people. They might have stereotypes about the people that are affected by social media. They might go, I'm not a bully, therefore why should I care? Yeah? And what we have to do is we have to really think about what are we writing about and what is our audience. Now this obviously takes some time when we're first doing it, but over time you'll get so quick at this that it will become something that's quite common sense to you. So what you do is you take those ideas and you establish your audience. I'm teaching you the structure that we minimise to EPIIIC. And we're on lesson 1, which is establish. We establish our audience. We literally sit them down in front of us on whatever sofa they're sat on or whatever chair or whatever seat. They could be on a train, on a bus, behind a desk. They could be at work, they could be at school, could be at home. Yeah, I think I said that. And we think what is going through their heads. What question might they be thinking? Yeah, what question might this person be thinking? How many followers do I have? Yeah? I wonder how many likes my last post got. They might be thinking the kind of questions that they think are quite harmless. Yeah? They're comfortable. They're not suffering headaches and suffering health problems. They're not suffering bullying as a result of social media. They're playing it just for fun, or they're using it just for fun, for the follower count, for the likes, for the joy of TikTok, maybe. Okay? So we think about what they might be thinking and where they might be sat. And then we follow this quite structured way to open our answers. It just gives us a really nice way to get in. As you sit, describe how they're sitting. There's probably only one question, something through your mind. Yeah? And to do this well, I want you to think about where they'll be sat, where they'll be reading this. Where might they be reading this? They could be reading this on paper, or they could literally be reading this on their phone. Where do we get most of our news now? Yeah? Where are they sat? Where do we use our phones often? On the couch? On our beds? On the bus? Yeah? What question might go through their mind? How do I get more followers on Instagram? Yeah? We've said these questions already. So that's how we start. It might say something like this. As you sit on the uncomfortable, noisy and overcrowded bus, scrolling mindlessly through your phone, there's probably only one question running through your mind. How do I get more followers on Instagram? Yeah? And that's kind of a way to open. Yeah, but it could be a variety of different things from your mind. And then what we do is we respond to that question. To that I say, it is, it is, it is. And we have certain words that really help us with this. So, we want to tell our audience that we are certain that this is a problem. It is certainly, we want to tell our readers that it is unquestionable that this is a problem. Undoubtable, you can't doubt me, I am sure. Undoubtedly. I'm missing one. Indisputably, you can't dispute it, you can't question it. Indisputably. And another good one, saying one I've already put, unquestionably. So, it is certainly, it is unquestionably, it is undoubtedly, it is indisputably. These words, these adverbs, are really good to make sure you are secure and certain in the point you're putting across. Now, as well as that, we need to think about what privilege our ignorant reader has. They have a privilege that people who are affected by something don't have. Because if you're affected by it, it is causing you trouble. But if you're unaffected by it, you have the privilege of not having that trouble. So our readers have a privilege. They have a fortune. They have luck. They have luxuries. And then all we do is we take our ideas from earlier, which I have here. We take our ideas from earlier. Take the one that we did together. And we use these to show what they don't have. It is certainly a privilege to not experience online bullying. It is unquestionably a fortune to not be addicted to the malevolence of social media. It is undoubtedly a luxury to not have to suffer with your mental health as a result of dangerous opinions online. Yeah, and all we do is we put our ideas into our opening statement, and essentially what that does is it sets your ground, your foundation. I am going to tell you why this is true. It is certainly a privilege that you do not. It is unquestionably a fortune that you do not. And you just kind of mix these together as however you want, or you come up with your own. And what that repetition does is it helps you sound like you know what you're talking about, but it also helps the reader to start to understand their ignorance. Yeah, that's the whole point of paper 2 question 5, is to be able to write about a point of view and make people care about it. The only way you'll get people to care about your point of view is if you're certain in your point of view and you show them why they should care. They should care because they have a privilege that not everybody has. Okay? And then what you do is you practice writing that. So what I would like you to do now is I would like you, using this structure if you need it, but if not, just take some of the sentence starters and make it your own. As you can see here, there's a lot of help, so you don't need that help. Make it your own. Have a go at your establish, and then start on the next video. So your first paragraph, you establish your audience, you make it clear, you're certain about this, and you tell me the ignorance of the reader. Okay, so just to clarify, we have where they're sitting and what's going through their mind, and we have the privileges, the fortunes, the luxuries that they have, yeah, and why they must listen. Okay, thank you for listening.